All right.
It says meeting is now streaming live. It says it's streaming.
What's that?
It says it's streaming live.
Yep. All right.
Thank you so much, Tim. You
Thanks,
can
Tim.
leave it open.
Are we streaming live?
Yep.
Okay.
The answer is no.
Answer's no. To,
The question you're gonna ask.
I was just asking if you were ready.
You can ask me, or
Yeah.
you can ask me the question.
All right, next section is, we're live?
Yes,
we are now live. Good. Welcome everyone back. Thank you for your patience. Next up is, before we go to the COGS, do we have any emails?
No.
Information for the public empty for now, so we'll go into the report section of the meeting, starting with our report on ELL students.
I try to make sure you. Hopefully, I can share.
I could also look at it on my board doc if you wanted to. I've
You
looked
just-
through it a bit.
Ooh,
Yeah, then you do, have to do
share screen,
yeah.
right? Let me see. If I can do this. How does that
Oh.
look? Can you see it? Okay.
Yep, I do. Thank you.
That. That may have to stay, but we'll move this.
Very good.
Okay. So, and part of my new role this year, part of what I'm helping to oversee is the English Language Learner Program. And so Teresa and Sonia really dove into this last year and started some really good, just different pieces to this program. And so we're just trying to build on that because this is a building, growing edge for our district. So this information was accurate until today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It's still mostly accurate. It's just we had a family that moved up. So the numbers that are here have just been adjusted by a couple of students. So you can see I left, some of this will look familiar. Some of it will look like when I present a special education. I left that in there just so we see more of a scope of what our district, some of the makeup of our district. So you can see we had, we were at 1% in 2020, 1% 2021, then 2022, you see it went up to 3% of our students were identified as English language learners. This year, we're up to 4% if you add these two slices together. English language learners are students that are currently learning English language. Former English language learners are students that are still entitled to some services, but have tested out of meeting some of the language supports.
What's SWD?
Students with disabilities. So you can see that there has been growth over the last few years, in particular last year and this year. So then we look at our instructional staff. Get it so you can see all of these. So this is the part that we're going to focus on is the ELL teacher and the ELL TA. So currently, last year, we had a half-time, Caroline Handley fulfilled the role of the half-time ELL teacher and was still coming up to the middle school some and working at the elementary some and providing some foreign language pieces at the elementary. So she really was split into three pieces last year. That shifted some this, and we did have Candace Kiss is a teaching assistant who's fluent in Spanish. And so she helped us through last year as we started to have more students that were Spanish speaking enter the district. Not all of our ELL students are Spanish speaking. That is the majority of our ELL students, but we do have some students that also speak Bosnian and sometimes Russian. So we have some other languages in there too. So this year, you'll see that this piece grew a little bit because Caroline is now fully, she's still going between both buildings, but her job is that is working with our ELL students. And Candace is at the middle high school because that's where the majority of our students are right now. Even though you'll see, it was interesting to look at all these pieces over these last few years. So I split this up by UPK, elementary, and middle high school. So in 2021, 22, you could see the majority of our English language learners were at the elementary. And then 50-50 last year. And then this year, you can see now we have a majority at the middle high school. But we also have some, now we may have had some at UPK in these years, but I didn't have that number. So I don't want it to seem like we didn't have any at UPK, just some of that information going back through, now we kind of know what we're looking for as we move forward too. But this year we do have a couple students at the UPK level. So then just thinking about diploma and credential recipients. So English language learners are working towards Regents diplomas as well. They take Regents tests. Some of those tests can be in their home language. Some of those tests are in English. It depends on what the state regulations are for that. But you can see over the years, so these two charts have no English language learners receiving their recipients. We just did not have any in those years. And then we look at last year, and you will see that we did have 3% of our graduates were English language teachers. So this piece, it's just some of the different parts of the program right now. When a family enters our district, they usually just walk, they're walking in, they're a new family. They will fill out the home language questionnaire, which will tell us what is their home language. So there's a home language questionnaire form they fill out. Based upon that, then we determine if we have to do an individual interview and if we have to give the students the NYSETEL. So the NYSETEL is the New York State test. Caroline is trained on providing it, giving it to students. Laurel Reese up here at the middle high school also helps because you need two. And down at the elementary, Laura Coffin or Sonia sometimes help with that piece of it. So that NYSETEL then tells us what level that student is at with their English language learning. So that NYSETEL is administered within 10 days. So students usually arrive and hopefully they are in school within a couple of days. So it's a very short time frame and turnaround to get them into school and into the building and into the classrooms. And then from there, we start to learn more information about them. So there's these different levels: entering, emerging, transitioning, and expanding. And depending on what level there is, that drives how many minutes they're supposed to receive a DLL programming. So if they test out it's commanding, that means that they're not an EL student. Maybe we thought that through the interview in the home language they may be, but if they're at this level, then they're not going to be EL. So through this process, I realized there are two types of programs that the New York State talks about, and we talk with families about. There's a bilingual education program. That would mean you would have two language teachers in there. They would have a classroom. That has to be put in place if you have more than 20 students at the same grade level having the same home language. I don't envision us getting, our population is not big enough. I do envision us getting to need that level, but we are putting in as the English as a new language program. Those are the components that we're providing. Students can exit in a number of ways. One of them is that receiving the commanding or the proficient level on the NYSA slot. So the NYSETEL is what they take when they come in. The NYSA slot is what they take each year to see where their language is. At the end of the year, it's usually a May test. So they can, in combination, score an expanding or advanced on the NYSA slot and a 3 or above on the grade 3 through 8 exam. And that means they shift to a formal ELL. Grades 9 through 12, you expanding or advanced again, and then they receive a 65 or above on their English Regents, and it has to be in the same year. So you're thinking juniors when you think of that English Regents, that's usually that year. But those are ways, but if they exit from here, then they go to this status, which is a former ELL status. They're still entitled to 2 years of ELL services and they're still entitled to testing accommodations. And then once this timeframe has passed, then they become what is called ever ELL students. And that just means that they had an ELL status, but they're completely exited from that. These charts are right from state ed, but it talks about, when I go back to that, entering, emerging, transitioning, expanding, and commanding, depending on where they are on those levels, that tells us how many units and how many minutes per week those students should be getting. It also talks about if it should be push in or pull up, or they're pulled out of the classroom. So we're working towards trying to make sure they're getting all of their minutes. This is K through 8. So just when I switch to the next one, so you can see if they're entering, and we've had some students just walk in the doors and they are just entering. They are supposed to be receiving 360 minutes of service per week. This next one is for students that are 9 through 12. And what struck me is if they're 9 through 12 and they come in as entering, that number jumps to 540 minutes. So that's my thought on this is these students are now, they are working towards their high school diploma at this point, right? And they're coming in with very little English. And so I think that intensity of that service increases because they're trying to make sure they're ready to build towards that. But that is, that was a big jump when I was looking at the minutes for our students. Do you have any questions so far? Yes.
What if you gave everything in kind of terms of percent? What are we talking about in absolute numbers?
Yes. So when I look at our overall enrollment, we currently at last count, we were about 548 total enrollment. So our ELL students for the district, there's about 18. There was 18, but remember I just had that family move. And then 5 former, so 23 in total. So 23, it's just spreading throughout.
But I don't know whether you have the answer to this, but are there, do you have multiple people from the same family, or are they mostly one-offs?
You know, we do have quite a few siblings
Yeah.
that are part of this. Yeah, I think I may have one family that has only one, but then there's also siblings. So yes, they're families.
So Sarah, do you feel that these families that you would not even be able to answer this are permanent to our district, or do you think, you know, I don't understand, but after they've spent a couple of winters here, they're out of here?
So the part of it was digging in and looking at that. And so when I did, the families that have come have stayed. Or there have been families.
I did notice that. That's what I was looking at too today when I went through that. They do stay. It was only 4 families that didn't, I think, or 4 kids.
They come up too, but they do tend to stay. We had one family that left, but had to stay, but we're here for 4 years. So even though they left, it wasn't a 1 month here or 1 month gone. Now the family that I just worked with, that was a very short duration. So I don't know if that's going to be a new trend, but we have not been the trend. Families that we have had are staying. Any other questions?
So, Sarah, you mentioned most of these people said 18 to 23. I think. They're mostly Spanish, but you also have Bosnia. What do you do with them?
So English language learning is, when it's broken down, some of the things that Caroline is doing is she's working on specific reading pieces, things that you would do similar to almost what a reading teacher would do, breaking down the language in that way. So it's not necessarily about being able to translate with them. It's about being able to teach them the language from the beginning up. So translation is a bonus, absolutely, if they can translate. And Bosnian, some of them have really good family units here, so they have others that can help translate.
So
Yeah.
must be less concerned with Bosnians than Spanish.
Right, but now, I mean, there's quite a few Spanish-speaking families, and I have run into them like at the grocery store informally, and they're there together, and we say hello, but it does seem like they have some support.
Present too.
Mhm. Mhm. So this is a work in progress, right? This is new for our district. I've talked to other districts in our area. I informally at our chairperson's meeting asked if any other schools were seeing English language learner, if that was happening in other schools, and they were not. So this is kind of unique to us right now.
And Sarah, I think it's important too, with the 23, we go back 3 years ago and our number was 2.
Yes.
So it's a precipitous increase for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
But you magnify that, if someone at the higher level needs 540 minutes, you have theoretically 10 kids that fall into that demographic. I mean, Sarah has the chart there that shows the minutes required versus what's receiving. Is how can you take 2 dedicated staff members, split between 2 buildings, and meet the necessary minutes as more needs come in, others come out, and then the fluidity of the student moving and hopefully accelerating into a different minute level. So
Yeah.
it's-
Do you combine the students, like, so that if there's 3 high school students and they need whatever 540 minutes, that those 3 are combined? Okay.
We are combining. We are combining some additional levels. If you go back a couple pages, it talks about, I think, 2 consecutive levels combined. We expand that a little bit. So we are combining. There are groups of students working together, and then Caroline is pushing into some of those. At the elementary, especially, she's pushing into some of the classrooms for some of the tribal students as well. That's a little less combined and less they're in the same classroom together, which we have done. It's been that unique situation where I have 2 Spanish-speaking students both at the same grade level having a friend in class.
This is a lot for our district. It's new. It's a lot. People like you and everything else to absorb, because like you said, even Saranac Lake, they're not getting any of the students.
And it's great. It's a great addition to our district.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Diversity,
Absolutely.
it's lovely, and these families are been lovely
Well, I'm sure.
to work with, and the students are lovely, and they grow so fast. It's just from the start of the year to the end, they just grow so
Yeah,
fast.
I'm sure.
So very rewarding, but definitely new to our district. And if you think about, I'm focusing on this, but all of these students are in classrooms with our general education teachers who this is new to them too, right? They are wearing microphones to help translate. They're using technology. They're talking with Caroline. They're talking with Candace. So there's a lot. So I think that we are giving the students a lot. When we look at the minutes, there are some gaps there, but because it is a growing piece for us, I do think the students are coming every day and they know that they have certain that are happening. They know they're going to see Mrs. Kiss or they're going to see Mrs. Gambley. The teachers know that they can use some of the devices and technology to translate. So I'm not sure how to squeeze that down, but trying to get, will it help there? Okay, there, just so we can see that all at a glance. Right now, with the shift, I do not think we currently have any kindergartners, but the other shift would have been 2nd grade. But so from when I created this last week to now, kindergarten no longer has that piece. Then, so that mobility question, the mobility of families. So up until Thursday, we had only had 4 students that actually moved out of district. And that 4 students was 1 family. So that had but that's since 2021. So really it is a pretty stable area. And then let's see, I have just some other factors that when I think about it, tried to just capture some of the other pieces. So we do have a full-time teaching assistant at the middle high school, and she definitely gets her steps in because she's working 6th through 12th grade. And so she kind of sees who is in the most need, what class needs the most support, and will go to those classes. And she's also helping to look at grades and making sure homework is completed and making sure they're understanding their homework. So she's providing those types of support, and she can translate beautifully. So she's helped set in parent meetings when we've had meetings. And then the school nurse, the school nurses in both buildings have helped to coordinate because there's also medical components. There's vaccinations, there's things that we have to have by New York State requirements. So you don't think of nurses right away when we think of this, but the nurses are definitely working on setting up and getting those supports and working with families to make sure they're getting connected to doctors and insurance providers and all of those pieces. We also have our registrars. So I think of Amanda and Michelle at both buildings. They're the ones that are collecting as many documents as they can, looking through those documents, making sure we're missing things. How do we get those documents? Getting as much information from the family as possible to get the students started as quickly as possible in school. We are using different new technology. And then our district social workers also connecting with some of these families, depending on their situation. They may have more needs than, yes, there's children at school, but maybe they're not used to this climate and they may not have all of the supplies that they need. And so we're trying to help connect those students that way. Tim has been, I know you've been working with community members too. So just a team effort at this point. There's, I'm sure some that I've missed as I've gone through. I just tried to highlight different aspects of the program. I think so.
Sarah, it's a great presentation. All your visuals are so helpful. Just to be able to look at, you know, the charts and everything, it's just really helpful visually to see all the information. A lot of work.
Any questions? What would you think would be the, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna hold you to like whatever you suggest right now, but what are going to be the needs, you know, from a resource or staffing aspect in the coming years? I mean, obviously, we don't know. They could, you know, several of these families could leave tomorrow and we would not know, or 15 new families could show up at our district next week and we would have no clue that was gonna happen. So, you know, what in your mind would be, like, what should we be, I mean, we're gonna be entering into budgeting here pretty soon, you know, what are the things on the horizon that we should be looking out for? Because I mean, obviously we're having a shortfall in hours in construction. What are the resource gaps there that are preventing us from hitting those?
I think if we were to work towards having an EML teacher in each building, if we were to work towards that, then you can set their days up a little differently. They're not going back and forth, right? You get more capacity, more efficiency out of that. I think that would be something to work towards, to look at. And that would be if our numbers both stable or gain, or even gain a couple, you know, that would be something to work towards. I think that some professional development for all of our staff, just because it is such a new piece, there are some professional development, but I think that we're just going to have to look into, just to give the staff a little more information too. Like our faculty is great and they embrace students and they take them on and they figure out how to hook a microphone up and get it on their computer and translate. And they figure out how to use their phones or figuring out how to translate in Google. But I also think just having some more professional development around these conversations is important, since this
Is there any explanation why this is happening so precipitously? Is it what's your understanding, or do we have one?
I think that we have businesses in our town that need
Right.
workers, and I think these families are coming to work, and I think
Nice
they're,
place to be.
yeah, they're finding jobs, they're coming to work, and when I have meetings with them, they say over and over again how much they like and appreciate the school.
Perfect.
And great.
I think it's just
It's
part of
good.
the economy here. We're a resort town,
Yeah.
and the hotels, and
Everything.
restaurants,
Everything.
plus the retail stores.
Yeah.
This happened in Breckenridge similarly.
Yeah.
And just, I think the three pieces for our, that's, you see this increase. First is, many of the hotels now have residency availability for the
That's
workforce.
true. They provided.
So that's a game changer. And then the J1 population that has come traditionally, they fluctuate in and out, but they go home and tell tales of a place that is
Yeah.
provides opportunity. And then, so I think those two create the third, which is the next wave by word of mouth who comes, and like anecdotally, some of the families that are more fluid, they leave because they came with certain expectations of a job and housing, not necessarily securing them in advance, and we're unable to make that happen, and so they vacate. So those three things together are creating this sort of
And I think it's ironic you said that this isn't a situation in Saranac Lake, which is 10 miles away. And I think it has to do with the nature of our economy and what we do for a resort town.
I agree.
It's a lot of hospitality needs.
And there's a service in Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
That works with families that want to,
people solutions.
that want to work. So there's an organization that's bringing a lot of these families in. One of the things that we've attempted to do is to try to get some warning when we have like new families incoming, just because where we're doing right now, the families are just walking in the door. And
Yeah.
there's a language barrier, there's all this,
Thank goodness.
there's a myriad of things that have to happen, that need to be in line. So what we're trying to do is communicate with those employers in the program to get that early warning to say like, hey, next week, you're gonna have a family from whatever country coming in, here's, they have this many kids. And so we can get ready, we can make sure that the translator is there that day,
Yes.
like stuff like that.
Thank
So-
goodness for Google Translate on the phone.
Right.
Yes.
Quite well. I've had many conversations with families, but it would be nice to have
Yeah.
just the.
So like to create some sort of process so that makes that family's, experience and transition easier. And it makes it easier on the staff of the school. So they're not, my wife works in the counseling office and it's sometimes a scramble. It's like, oh, we got 3 kids, we got to register. No one speaks any English. Where's the translator? Where's this? Where are the documents that are translated? So, but having that early warning, that's all set up. And when that family walks in, they're welcomed in their native language. They're, the documents are ready to go. All the background is known. So just, accepting the reality of our situation here and then planning on the school side, how do we best address the needs of the family, the students as they go into our, so. But thank you very much for the report. I think that was very helpful.
Very good.
Any other discussion, questions? All right,
No,
next,
it's, well,
next up is
You
the,
want, say whatever you prefer.
but,
I've done
stick it out to the
I
end.
usually always stick it out. I'm good with.
Okay, well, you won't.
a program like that.
Dana.
I won't spend a lot of time on the budget performance information. You have the documents. It's pretty straightforward in the sense of, really haven't seen much change. Money came in, some money went out. Type of deal, we're progressing on targets. I mean, the key indicator there is you look at our year-to-date expenses, the 4th page, and our expenses are up 3.5% over last year. That's kind of what we budgeted. We budgeted about a 3% increase from last year to this year, and we're kind of on target with our expenses. So when I look at that, we are trending. We are trending where we need to be when it comes to our expenses. Revenue, that's kind of a straightforward. That most of our revenue comes in beginning of the year with the property taxes. And we slowly start seeing additional revenue from the state come in throughout the year, and you see that uptick. Our local revenue, a little over 17 million, year to date, a little over $1 million of state revenue has come in with some more to come. So if you look at that again, we're trending in the right place. from one year to the next, in terms of our revenue. It really, we're moving in the right direction. There's nothing unusual in terms of any of our expenses or drop in revenue thus far as of end of December.
And, I just read a bunch of things in the newspaper about Opal's budget and Tanya's letter to the editor.
Yep.
Is it just blowing smoke, or is this
Well,
something we need to
we-
plan for in the budgeting process?
Put it this
When
way,
we get cut?
when we start our, February 6th will be the first presentation, and all in previous years, we build our budgets up until the state approves their budgets, we build it off per numbers.
If the numbers are available.
Right, so, well,
Yeah.
right, so we always build off of what the governor presents in their executive budget until the legislators approve that budget, hopefully by April 1st, but that has gone away the last few years. So to answer your question is, we gotta build as if
So
her
the
numbers
radar screen.
are accurate. With the hope that it comes in higher, because if her numbers are accurate, we're losing $617,000 in state aid. That's real. If you look at previous years in terms of difference between the governor's proposal and what has come in, it has been basically even. I pick one or two in terms of percentage for that. A percentage for us is like $50,000. So when you're looking at it percentage wise, right now off of her proposal, it's nearly 17% reduction in foundation aid.
Is that for here
Or
or?
that's for us.
State.
That's for us.
Yeah, that's what the gist of Rogers.
Yes. Saranac Lake is,
Disproportionately bad.
yeah, 45% of the districts in the states are going to see a reduction of some magnitude. Ours is double digits. I know Saranac Lake, it's almost $1.4 million lost in foundation aid.
So that's encouraging in the sense of its scope of ridiculousness that.
Right.
Half of the school districts, I mean, just anecdotally, Sarah here presenting about 23 DLL students and the encumbrance on the district to provide those needs mandated by the state, that costs. And, so although the population has, dissipated in our district, the needs, and not just with language, but with social work and with the myriad COVID learning loss aspects, like we are addressing those with fidelity, but I hold out hope. In the news today, Shelley Mayer, the state Senate Ed Chair, and Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins, who leads the majority in the Senate, put up notice that the legislature was not going to tolerate this. So, in our conversations, Dana, we've talked about how the governor has a mandate to propose a balanced budget.
Yep.
And the legislature, if you follow the tea leaves and the fact that the deficit is rampant to date, is not held by that same mandate. And so the pressure will come to bear. But right now, we act on the information that's available to us.
I mean, in
So-
fact, there was I watched the governor's presentation today online, and then there was a follow-up article actually in the Enterprise, and they quoted her, not from the presentation, but she's already pushing back on the fact that there's a reduction for some schools, basically saying that, you were kind of told ahead of time that we were going to raise up districts that were considered underfunded, but this federal money was going away. And now we're in essence righting the ship that it wasn't going to be a gravy train forever. So the dilemma that we face
Dana.
royal weight. You guys will have to approve a budget sometime in mid-April. And April 1st is when the budget is state. So we've known in previous years that has not been the case where it's been done on time at state level. So how does one build a budget off of a fictitious number that legislators say they don't want to see happen until they actually pass the budget sometime in April? March would be great. but at the same time, we need to progress and move forward off the numbers that we have.
Well,
Therein lies the dilemma.
yeah, I think it's important while we have this kind of forewarning, we start thinking about what messaging are we gonna give to the community? And, you know, it's gotta be honest, but there's some people who are voting, they just look at your cost per student. It's going through the roof and the population is going down. So help me understand. I think we need to really make sure that we just don't lay out the numbers. People have to understand the dynamics that are
Our
underneath.
population's actually gone up though.
Not this year.
I think I agree, John. It's
Yeah.
vitally important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, the number that they often cite is the number of the special education and general ed. At least the ones that I've heard, they often cite the number that is special education, which is much higher per student versus the general ed.
Oh, sure.
One, but
And these might be 60-year-old people, 70-year-old people. School isn't the same as it was.
I know.
before.
Why can't we
And
get it on the
Sarah-
same building? Why-
Sarah
how is
says
it
it's
school?
not gonna be the
I mean,
same
I think
tomorrow.
our messaging back to the state is, it should be, until the Bills can make a field goal, they can pay for their own stadium. And give it back to the students.
Or,
No, but you just told me they can miss a field goal, so, and I'm still chafed about them giving all that money to the Bills.
Who's that being offered?
I know.
$550 million given to Oregon, only given another 82.
Yeah, actually, we did okay for what? Stuff so far, right?
So otherwise, I mean, in terms of our budget right now, day to day, we're doing well. I've included the cash flow, same thing. And again, that's really just taking our revenue, and I can see that December actual is there, and then it's projecting out, and that's based off of our past trends. And, yeah. In previous years, when I haven't had this cash flow document, I've always said that we get most of it upfront, and then state aid trickles in. You know, we get a little over $3 million in state aid. 17 million of our, of our 21 million comes from revenue from property taxes, and then another 3+ million plus some federal money makes up the difference, and that comes in throughout the year, and that's all this document. It basically just shows the numbers and projections in the next sheet. Questions on the budget performance, cash flow? Treasury report, you'll see that we are still flush with cash. You're looking at our balance as of December 31st, over $19 million in various accounts. You'll see that operating fund, 65,000. We keep that purposely low. I'll be able to move most of the money sits in the insured cash sweep and the 9 class. That's where we are able to generate the most interest. About 5% coming out of both of those accounts. And I said this before, that as the year progresses, that number in 9 class will tick down, because that's where we'll start pulling our funds to pay our bills. So it's very flush at the beginning of the school year because of taxes, property taxes. And then by June, that number will come down to what we, typically have left after we pay our bills for that year. Will be about, about $6 or $7 million in there. Once that's all said and done, and you can ascertain that from what we have as an unrestricted fund balance, as well as our restricted fund balance. When you look at those two numbers, we have about $7 million in unrestricted fund balance and restricted fund balance. So that will stay there, and it's still, earning interest. So, looking good. More money is going out at this point, but that is on the interest side, we are still generating lots of interest. I think I budgeted $35,000 for interest and revenue, and we are already at about $300,000 of earned revenue. Questions on the treasury report?
Thanks, Dana. Now introducing Dana Wood from the Operations Committee.
Operations Committee, we're just going to give you an update on one of our projects in the auditorium. Well, the weight room, which is almost complete, minus just things that were back ordered. But the auditorium, I'm happy to say that there's no real progress. Like I said before, once you get the state involved in terms of having to approve these projects, things get slowed down. It's not like we could just go out and buy the lights and then get a person to install them. No, it had to be submitted to the state. That means we had to bring in a architect for Mosaic. They're going through it. They finally came back through with an engineer before the winter break. I heard from them after break saying, okay, that's been done. We're now putting together the information. At this point, there's like a 22 to 24 week backlog with the state to look at these things. So I wish I had better news on the auditorium because it would, I was hoping that this would be something that could get done over the summer. Perfect time to switch out the new lights and all that and for the auditorium. And, it's not looking like it's going to be at least approved. Tim hasn't even gotten the document yet from Mosaic to sign off to then submit to the state because it's a considered a capital project in their eyes. So that's kind of where we are. Unfortunately, this is going to be a couple-year process.
Our project from 2 years ago, so the Wi-Fi upgrade,
Yes.
as you recall, was completed during our elementary tour. So you just build it in 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Nostradamus would do great.
So,
Oh my God.
yeah, I figured I'd just kind of share where we are. There's some slight movement, but not really. Kind of walking the net molasses at this point. Projects. Kind of where we are and things are otherwise moving smoothly. Facility, stuff like that. We're finally getting our last bus, should be delivered tomorrow. But we gotta, take a week or so to get it actually registered. We'll have you'll see a new medium-sized bus, floating around, driving around, 28 passenger
Nice.
handicap bus. So that will probably be in the parking lot at the transportation department at some point tomorrow. And then hopefully on the road, sometime midweek next week. So.
Is that the one that can be driven by people
That's
going to
the-
the CDO?
We have that one. That's the
You
small,
have it.
small one. Yeah, that's been, I think, a nice addition to the fleet. Yeah, exactly. It's serving the purpose that we thought it was going to serve by having that flexibility for staff and stuff like that in transportation. So this will add the 28 passenger bus will add another element of kind of that mid-level bus. It's will be our handicap accessible bus. That way we're not sending up 66 passenger bus. We'll put up, we'll hopefully improve the purchase or lease of 3 new buses coming up in May. We've already assured that they're in stock. That delivery will happen in the summertime. Not so we made a point to get buses that were already in stock. That's kind of where we are operationally.
Great. The weight room has been a big hit.
Yes,
So I think that,
yes.
Superintendent report.
Sure. So I had a nice dialogue with the management of Hudson Headwaters last week. And the impetus for this dialogue was in part born by our desire to expedite the enrollment of our incoming ELL students. So in order for a student to enroll, they need to have sufficient immunizations. Typically in our country, in order to be immunized, you have to have insurance. So if you're arriving and adding a language barrier to that, there can be some impediments to that happening. So I reached out to Hudson Headwaters, hearing rumblings that they were taking over the emergency room space in Lake Placid, which they are. And the meeting that we talked about initially was how can we assist families enroll, but then it became a much broader conversation about how can we meet the needs that aren't being met in the community. And it's particularly advantageous to have primary care less than a mile from Ryan's house and also the elementary school.
Sure.
So,
Very fair.
so to that point, in that discussion, they are going to have pediatric care there, which is tremendous for our families. There is a deficit in pediatric care to date. families have to travel to Saranac Lake or Tupper Lake or go without those well child visits. We have a deficiency in psychological and counseling services writ large across the area, and Hudson Headwaters is able to assist in providing those services. Some of the more novel things that they talked about includes mobile dentistry, where they would set up a clinic in our 2 gymnasiums and provide all preventative dental hygiene care for our students. So we're particularly excited about that. We've been meeting that need by instead having Keith Clark and our 2 nurses bring the students at different grade levels to Dr. Balestrini's office. And that has been far more cumbersome than having this done at a clinic. And then also with regard to immunizations, they are able to assist in those. And just something novel about Hudson Headwaters, they have 22 different chapters, if you will. And Lake Placid will be their 23rd. And the way they are set up differently in their compensation structure from Adirondack Medical Center. They basically have stipulations in their compensation structure from the federal government that if they offer one service at any of their centers, they have to provide the same service model. And so there's quite a bit of opportunity for our community in thinking about, of these 23, Schenectady, Gloversville, across the state, anything that's offered those places, someone seeks those services here, they're required to provide them. So that's very encouraging for our community that we will have an increase in those services. So all told, a very fruitful meeting with Hudson Headwaters, and we think that this will be beneficial for all kids, not just for our young students. We are in the final stages of launching our employee assistance program. We'll have a presentation for the staff at the beginning of the month of February, and then they will have access to medical, counseling, financial, legal support, resources on demand. The gentleman who spoke about the plan to us was talking about how he was changing his advance directive and his will through this program, or planning for saving up for their child's college fund. So there are innumerable ways to use the program. Averages indicate that businesses that have an employee assistance program, their utility is about 4% of the membership. We're hoping to have more than 4%, but if 4% of the staff here get something beneficial for the cost of this program, then that's 4% more than we had. So all of this, as the continuation of our promotion of wellness for staff, which is an element of our strategic plan. We, in celebration of Martin Luther King Jr., the holiday, we did have an author visit at the elementary school. Calvin Ramsey attended. Calvin is the author of Ruth and the Green Book. So for the history aficionados out there, the Green Book was from 1936 to 1967. It was the manual, if you will, for traveling in the segregated South, which would specify where a person of color could stay at a hotel or gas up or go to a diner, where they were permitted in a segregated part of the country. And so this author came in and talked about the book and just exposed our students to sort of the evolution of equal rights in our society. So that was very a good visit from the author. And kudos to Ms. Haney, our elementary school librarian, for bringing that in and timing that so well with Martin Luther King's holiday. We had a music assembly just preceding that the week before. Peggy Lynn and Dan Duggan came in. They are known for their children's songs about nature, blues. They played the dulcimer and flat picking guitar, so the students enjoyed it very much. My son was in attendance and sang along, so that's always a barometer I follow personally. We had this week and last week we've been working on the NWEA testing. So this is the math and ELA test that we're doing K through 11 in our district, and this is for us to get those data points on what are the standards we're hitting really well with the students, what are the ones that we need to continue to work on. And so with the second data point, now it's not just information, it does start to tell a story that our grade level teams can review and begin to make instructional decisions. So we're creating that. We're going to have data days in the district where Whole grade level teams will have subs brought in, and then they will review the information and make informed decisions to try and improve our practice. So all of these things, the breadcrumb trail that we've got to this point, getting substitutes by incentivizing them with compensation, getting the platform in place so that we can have reliable data that goes from building to building. Incrementally got to a point where now we have information, we have the ability to cover classes, we have people trained in how to disaggregate that information, so let's run with it. So 2.5 years in the making, it's gone very well, so we're excited about that. Our 5th graders went on a trip to the Capitol to see Annie. Karen was able to attend it, so I was not present, but Karen, all told, it was a good trip, yes?
It was a great trip.
And what was your highlight other than Annie?
The Children's Museum in Saratoga was so cool. The kids had a really good time and the staff there did just such a nice job with them. And the dinner, of course. That's right.
So New York State, through their heritage grants, they do provide a degree of compensation for trips if you stop at state park or site or heritage site, which John Formonti does with great fidelity. This is yet another thing that allows that 5th grade trip to sustain. But a great trip all told, and thanks for Mr. Formonti and the 5th grade team for making it happen. At our last board meeting, which was canceled due to the whisper of inclement weather, we did also have all county music that was scheduled. And all county band and chorus took place at Bocat Valley this year. We had over 40 students participate in both, which is great. Ryan, I know you were there rocking it as the music dad, and we appreciate everything that Mr. Prosper and Ms. Kakuka do to ingratiate our students in those opportunities, and to our music students who have achieved that honor. Congratulations to them. Speaking of music, this year's musical is Matilda. And so students are gearing up for the production. It'll take place in early March, 7th through the 9th at the Middle High School auditorium. So that will be fun. Our Winter Carnival is approaching. In the last several years, Carnival has taken place later in March. We've really been toying with the gods of spring skiing, and we're going to do it a little early this year, getting closer to true Winter Carnival, to the origins of the carnival itself. So this year's theme, in keeping with that, is tropical.
That's good. So the Amazon guys dropping off shirts in my house.
That's right. If the Amazon package that qualifies. So it'll take place February 29th, March 1st. Invitations will be forthcoming to all the board and to our dignitaries across the community. So we're excited to see yet another carnival celebration. Youth Olympians, I got to give a shout out to John Lansing. Doug, you could speak to this far greater than I could.
Actually, it was this morning. I was up until 2:30 watching numbers on a screen because it was not televised, not live streamed or anything. I haven't had the chance to speak with him yet, but I'm one proud papa. He's worked very hard in school, especially maintaining his grades as he lives a jet-setting life of a bobsledder.
Was he also in some sort of a commercial or something?
No.
They did profiles of all the Junior Olympians.
Oh, okay, that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's
Yeah.
the profile. I only
Yeah.
saw his.
So John placed 9th in the monobob,
Last night, yes.
which is outstanding. And he's in South Korea, yes?
He's coming back tomorrow. Yeah, South
Okay.
Korea.
All right. And in addition to John, we are also awaiting news of Kai McKinnon's performance as a ski jumper. So we
I
are,
believe she's still on her way.
yeah, I think
Right.
so. And we are well represented at the Youth Olympics. So congrats to John. Look forward to hearing from Kai and to all those who have supported that program. And congrats to you too, Doug. You know what I mean? Let's just say it. That's awesome. It's excellent. Adaptive skating program is continuing. So our district is continuing to offer adaptive skating for students in the elementary and middle high schools. This is a partnership with the Olympic Center. Adaptive skating classes are designed for students with a range of physical or developmental disabilities and enables them to skate and enjoy that. So this is yet another accomplishment of Sarah Allen with the snake oil qualities of Mr. Clark in ensuring that we can gain access to any facility outside of Fort Knox for that purpose. So we are grateful to have that dynamic duo and all of our staff members who assist the students in participating. Speaking of skating, tomorrow is Family Skate Night at the Oval, sponsored by Gordon Pratt Agency and the Add-on Fund. And there will be free rentals, coffee, hot chocolate, and snacks from 5 to 7 for all families of the district who wish to attend. And just as a final note, I asked our athletic director over the last several months just to do a review of our sports, see how our seasons and teams have been shaping up over the last several years, just to do a historical. And so we've been able to look at our student athlete participation numbers over the last several years. And really the impetus for this review was to assess the strength of our numbers as we continue to consider whether or not we need to entertain any mergers with any partner schools or any regional schools. Over the years, we've had mergers or combined teams with Saranac Lake and Keene on a handful of sports. Of the many teams that we field, there's only a few areas of concern with our future numbers in girls basketball and volleyball. Otherwise, our team numbers are strong and seem to indicate that we continue to be able to field our teams internally to the best of our ability. So that is not always the case. There's fluctuation in sports participation in every district and in every private institution. And over the last several months, I know that the district was approached by Northwood School. Northwood had asked if there was a sufficient need on our part for partnership to warrant consideration to allow day students at Northwood to participate on the district's teams. And just based on our information and our review, there does not seem to be a strong need or a basis for supporting that partnership at that time. But certainly, I will communicate with Northwood and thank them for their interest and always, looking to partner where we can as a community. So on that note, things seem to be good in the district, and that is my report.
Thank you.
Any questions for Tim?
Can you bring in the chocolate marshmallows for skating night tomorrow night? It better be warm. So.
Warm, hot tub.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
All right.
We don't need to burn.
It's next segment is filling upcoming board vacancies. We'll see there's 2 vacancies, myself, Rock. The terms expire 6/30.
Karen, what are our petition dates? Are they in there for the public?
Yes, I added those.
Okay.
To,
Oh, it's under public content for filling board vacancies.
April 22nd.
Any interested parties would need to get their petitions in. by 50 seconds.
20 seconds.
20 seconds, sorry. Or let second, and yours 20 days ahead.
During spring break.
It's true.
I tracked him down. Yeah. Yeah.
We have an early break.
We do.
Yeah, we'll be back by the 14th. There's hope.
We'll be back by the eclipse. No,
Yeah.
that's.
That's
never mind.
only
That's-
That's right. That's at 8.
We'll-
Yeah, we're returning.
Yeah.
Much of the sugar and one band.
Yeah.
I said, we will watch the eclipse from our own yard.
Then we'll probably have a snowstorm, so there won't be.
Right.
That's right.
Everybody that's flocking here from around the world, they might be very disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a lot of sun
No,
already.
we don't, we
so
don't.
It's slight dipping.
Yeah.
Do we need to, at this point, indicate whether or not we're running or?
No, that's personal preference. No need to. Just put the public on notice for petition dates and stuff.
All right. Okay. 5A, you'll see something in there for the legislative breakfast. The extracurricular report. That's about all there. 5A was in consent. Brings us to personnel items, personnel consent agenda. Recommended action, approve the following items which are included in the personnel consent agenda: 6B, long-term teaching staff appointment, 6C, long-term teaching assistant appointment, and 6D, teaching staff leave of absence. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
We'll give it to Ron, and then a second to Colleen.
Colleen.
One.
Oh.
One. Sorry, I can't get there fast enough.
Time going.
That's okay. Any discussion? Changes? If not, please vote.
7 yes.
One. So it takes us down to 6E, teaching staff retirement. Recommended action upon the recommendation of superintendent, accept the retirement of employee number 43.
We-
You never. John Burdick, math teacher at the middle and high school, effective June 30th, 2024. That's his nickname, old number 43.
Old number 43.
Do I have a motion?
Make the motion. Raise up.
Thank you, Ryan. Second?
I'll second it.
All right, there's Colleen getting in the game. Any discussion?
Just grateful for Mr. Burdick's service to the
Yep.
district.
Absolutely.
Thank you for as many years.
Absolutely.
And please vote. Hopefully he'll still answer Jeff's calls if he needs it.
He's a friendly guy. I know that John's always amazing.
7 yes.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Mr. Burdick. 6F, CSEA staff retirement, recommended action upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of employee number 40, custodian at the middle high school,
It's Daryl Breyer.
Daniel Schreier, effective June 30th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Doug. Second?
Second.
Hi, Ron, thank you. Any discussion?
Daryl's served for nearly 2 decades and served with loyalty and always has a smile and friendly words. Another loss for the district.
Please vote. We'll look forward to his upcoming memoir, If These Halls Could Talk. I'm sure he's got
Right.
some stories, 2 decades in one school. I'm sure he's got some real, maybe it'd be best if he doesn't write.
That's
Maybe he doesn't write this down.
Later Harry Potter.
7 yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Ms. Breyer. 6G, CSEA staff retirement. Recommended action upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of employee 23,
Elise Josiak.
Elise Stosiak, nurse at the elementary school, effective June 26, 2024. Do I have a motion? John, Colleen, second. Any discussion?
Just to reference, 26 years in the district.
Yeah.
And the entirety of COVID, so those were like dog years, they got a lot more.
Yeah.
And then continued through, so Elise has been a steady presence in our district in promoting the health of our students.
As I've read through the 3 of these, we're losing some real long-term
Yes, we are.
We are.
Yeah.
decades.
Yes. And Ronnie Winch already put in his retirement plan. Yeah, Ronnie. Forever. Good guy.
And 26 years of school nurse. She's got more
That's
stories.
right. These calls can't talk.
Yeah.
7 yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Stosiak. 7A was in
So,
consent, as was 7B. Brings us to the second, for the good of the cause. Do we have any emails?
you do not.
Linking goals with agenda items.
Sarah's presentation, wonderful presentation.
ELL.
Language learners, students first and foremost.
Yep.
Report. Report, students first and foremost, and community.
The education one would also fall for the ELL report, closing the opportunity gap. Just one of the big ways we can do that is to make sure that students can understand their instructors. You know, just a small task. It's a little bit blank, just a fact. All right, if you have any others, please get them to Karen. Next meeting date and location, February 6th. Ah, look at that. Start our budget work.
Yay.
Was it February?
I noticed all the board meetings for the remainder of the year are on there. Very fun.
Crazy.
Evenings are getting longer, no longer dark at 4:30 and time for bed, now it's 5:15. Time for bed. Yeah.
So any old agenda topics? Any new agenda topics? Right, then I will recommend action motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:47 p.m. 7:47 p.m. Whatever time it is. Holly, thank you. Ryan, second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.
Bye. See you in a few weeks. Stay warm. Bye.
Yeah. We're still second.